Turbo Concrete Mega Eagle. Okay, we're going to do some experimenting with the production of wet moulded leather sheaves today. Alright? Okay, we'll just zoom in for a second so you can see what I'm scribbling on. So, traditionally, when people make wet mould sheaves, they have a wooden form, and that's on a plank of wood, yeah, like that, and take the wet leather. Quite often people pin the edges down, so it ends up getting draped over the wooden form with nails going around it, and then you have to work the leather into the corners, you know, and it's quite time consuming, and you have to stay with it whilst the leather's doing its thing. And then some people have a clamp that goes over the top of it, so think of it as a female mould, a female part of the two-part mould perhaps. Now if we do a plan view, that's our protruding wooden form. What always happens is you get a lot of stretch in this area, and there's a lot of wastage around the edge. You have to serrate the edges so that the leather stretches nicely and it doesn't all pull into one area. So you end up using considerably more leather. There's considerable wastage basically just by how it's made. What I would like to try today is rather than clamping the leather firmly to the base of the mould and then working it around the corner, if we're going to make a horseshoe shaped pouch, two things I want to try, sort of experiment, is to make a two-part clamp, so that you clamp the wet leather in between two halves of steel, and these will be bolted together, yeah, and then that can then bolt down onto the form. So it's kind of like, it's a lot more like how, you know, vacuum forming with plastics is done. So that's clamped up and got floppy and then vac formed over a wooden mould. And I might look into adding a vacuum supply if it doesn't pull into the corners tight, but I can do that with an old fridge motor. That'd be easy enough. The other thing I want to do is sort of making two pouches in one go. So with a plain bit of paper in front of the camera. So if I want to do a horseshoe shaped pouch, I'd have a clamp like that, but I'd do two of them at the same time, and then I won't end up with the pull away in the middle, because it will try and pull the material from any area that's not supported. So if I do two at the same time and then cut them in half afterwards, I should dramatically reduce the amount of wastage that I have, which is good. And also, you know, doing two things at once, that's a bit of a labour saver. I'm going to build it out of steel this time. If this works, then I'll probably make a few moulds up out of aluminium, because I'm doing a bit of messing around with my casting at the minute. So you know, I can make a mould to lost wax cast them. Either way, that's in the future. All we want to do today is figure out if this is going to work with some steel and wooden moulds. Hopefully that makes sense. I've got to find a bigger ratchet. This is going to kill my nice little snap-on. I think it's starting to tear the leather. Does that show up? Either that or it's pulling out. Might be pulling out. Looks like it's tearing though. I'm pretty sure I left the cut edge on that. Well, that's what this was all about. Pushing it to the limits, lads. Eh? See what was going to bust up first. Alright. Need some... What are we going to do? Oh well, we'll keep going and see what happens. Whoa, okay. We can't keep going anymore, it's just popped off this side. We have sheared the leather. That was too much too soon for this old bit of leather. That's interesting. It has actually kind of dried it out. It's compacted it so hard that it's dried it out. It's gone hard again. Right, where it's where you've had it soaking, it goes really floppy. But this has pulled it so tight over that block that it's forced all the moisture out of it. It's sort of wrung it out, like, you know. So if you ain't got any moisture in it, it stops being flexible, which is what's happened there. Okay, this is I need to think of another way of doing this, folks. It did pull it down quite a long way. Ignore the discoloration, yeah, this is an experiment. This method has definite potential. I'm intentionally pushing this leather further than I should do, just to find the limits of this process, you know. Interesting. The leather is reduced in thickness. You know, it started at 4mm, and it's now about half the thickness. It's incredibly hard around the edges, which is nice. It's good. It's good. There's no creases in it whatsoever. I mean, what I've seen of people making wet mould pouches, the majority of the time spent doing it is spent trying to get the wrinkles and creases out, which is what makes it so labour intensive. This is the only way I can see of doing it without introducing wrinkles and creases. What I'm going to do this time, I've had another bit of leather soaking in here overnight. We're going to stick that in now, and I'm going to part form it, and then you know, push it a little bit around this mould, and then back it off, soak it again, and then you do it in stages. So I might soak it 3 times throughout the stretching process and just see how far I can stretch it. So I probably stretched it halfway down the block of wood. I'm going to throw this in a bucket of water and come back in a couple of hours time. I don't know, I can't remember if I remember to tell you, but I put some linseed oil on this bit of wood to try and lubricate the progress. It's starting to go a bit purple, you know, from the rust, I suppose. I think that's what's doing it, because the other one went black where it had been in contact with a steel, and that's been sat in a bucket of water for quite a while now. But it no longer feels stretchy, so I don't think it's gonna stretch much more, to be honest. I think I've found the limit of this bit of leather, which is cool. I mean, that's what I wanted to do, just figure out how far I could go, how far I could take a bit of leather. We'll see what happens though. Okay, so they both dried a bit. This has been a very interesting experiment for me, and show me a few things I can do and I can't do. You know, like, I definitely don't want to be getting steel near wet leather, because or you know, mild steel. It just goes black instantly, which is pretty peculiar. Hadn't appreciated that before, but now we know, don't we? The difference between the two is smaller than I had originally thought. So this one I just tried stretching it as much as possible in one go. This one it had three separate soaks, so I stretched it till I didn't feel comfortable going any further, then soaked it again and stretched it, and soaked it again and stretched it. How many is that? I can't remember. Either way, 3 good stretchings. And I suppose whilst I was doing this one, I also noticed the creaking noise as I was getting some tension on it, and a lot of that coincided with sudden movements of the ratchet I was using. So then I took it a lot slower, and I think the tearing here, you know, I hadn't figured that out yet. I was being a bit rough with it, so I'd like to think that they probably would have stretched the same amount each. Maybe this one marginally more, but with the additional soakings. But I think if I had just been more gentle with this one as I was with this one, they'd be near enough the same, and there's no advantage of giving multiple soakings. And we've got a 4-inch. It's 4 inches across with a 2-inch radius here, and we're about 1 inch deep. So from this, I can say for every 4 inches of leather that I have, this is 4mm leather, and I don't know if it's going to be different with thinner leather. Probably will be, but I haven't got any other leather at the minute. I need to go to the wholesaler. I'm getting 1.5 inches of stretch. So for 4 inches, 1.5 inches of stretch, because we're 1 inch deep, 2-inch radius. Call that 3/4 of an inch additional length, I suppose. Both sides, 1.5 inches over 4 inches. Which is a very, very useful figure, because now I can perhaps better predict what's going to happen. And if I keep it under that under that magic number and just go steady, you know, I can design and build something in confidence, knowing that I'm not going to exceed the what do you call it? And it's not elastic limit, is it? The yield, I suppose, of the leather. Yeah, I know we've not made something that looks pretty and attractive, but this is you know, primarily been a scratch and sniff exercise, figuring out what is and isn't possible. Yeah, very interesting. That's the magic number. The magic number for me, anyway, me being a bit heavy-handed, 1.5 inches per 4 inches. Don't expect to get any more stretch than that, and that's pushing it. Good. Hope you enjoyed this highly scientific video on stretching. It is beautifully hard. You thin it out, you pull it and stretch it, and it really stiffens it up, you know. And on top of that, you've got, you know, three-dimensional curves there, which stiffen up most structures, don't they? But don't go over the top, because then it starts tearing, doesn't it? Hey, all right, take care, folks. Bye bye.